Sorry, guys. Oh, sorry. I had to go and get a glass of water. I was like, oh, shit, no water. And I know that I very rarely forget to drink it. Very rarely drink it. Most of the time forget to drink it is what I'm trying to say. But... oh shit, turn my phone off. So welcome to this week's episode of Madness and Mayhem. We're going to be talking all things politics. It was not the plan. I was actually planning on doing a little bit of politics and then I kind of like venture into a couple of things slightly differently. But basically over the weekend, the whole politicky world has gone insane. And literally... about 15, 20 minutes ago, the French government has collapsed. So putting Le Pen in and her party in good stead, right? So we'll kind of do them first, and then we're going to look into the Labour reshuffle. We're going to go into the Green Party. Then we're going to jump across the water and have a little chat about the AFD deaths in Germany. And then we're going to nip up to Scotland and talk about the independence psyop. And then finish with some lunatics, because who doesn't love a little bit of lunacy? So just quickly dive into the French government. So I was just reading it and then I was like, oh my God, it's like 7 o'clock. Okay, so basically she's doing really well now. Recent polls, and obviously there was that whole controversy where she wasn't allowed to stand and they were going to put her in prison and all of that shit kind of happened last year. Now she's polling at 36%, up from 33%. She's polling at 40% and the party's polling at 36%. And just remember, the Labour Party in the UK won with 33% of the vote. So the mandate completely destroys all was only put in there by 33% of the population. And I would hazard a guess it's less than that because, postal votes, right, which are heavy Labour areas. We spoke about this before multiple times. Let's go back to my notes. We've got... So... basically, it's a shame you kind of didn't get any like live combos with me and Mr. Jax. So basically, he was kind of chatting away to me while I was like still like avidly prepping, and then kind of like the breaking report came through about France, and he was just going, well, does that mean Le Pen can get in? When's the election? And I was just like, oh my God, give me chance to freaking look. So basically there's going to be an election in 2027 if nothing happens, but they can force a snap general election. Now Le Pen couldn't take control completely on her own. She would have to form a coalition. So it would be up to, the Conservative style party to want to form a coalition with her. It's not something her and her party don't have enough. I don't know if they're called MPs in France, but the equivalent of what our MPs are. But it does say that she's aggressively been recruiting candidates. So, but they reckon that the RN could win 200 to 250 seats. So that would be a pretty good chunk of people in who... And you know what? If Le Pen's party, even if they were a coalition, like things would change in the UK pretty rapidly with regards to the boat jumpers, right? Because it would give France an opportunity to stop them coming into France. And we already have other countries in Europe doing it. Everybody's obsessed with the fact that we must put people up in, 4-star hotels. And I know there's a whole, like, we're going to put them in barracks now, with the training grounds and access to, I think it's just, they just don't need to be in the UK. Right? That's just plain and simple. Like, they don't need to be in the UK. It's ludicrous. So it will be good for us. It'll be good for us. And I love and welcome each country being patriotic and nationalist, right? What I don't enjoy is when you have a country wanting to impart their beliefs on everybody else, right? So if the Nazi Party just stayed in their own lane in Germany, like, that's fine, right? But they didn't. And we'd gone past the age of empires. This is the problem. This is the problem. This is one of the problems with what happened. And yes, it was, a test bed, and it was funded by Wall Street. And we just kind of like ignore all of that stuff and just think about it with regards to the issue wasn't the fact that the National Socialist Party, so they're left, so they're like Keir Starmer, right? Wanting to kind of turn Germany into socialist. The issue was obviously what kind of happened. But actually, initially, they were kind of supporting Germany to recover from the crap, right? After they were blamed for World War One, right? So if they'd have stayed in Germany and Germany would have prospered, the rest of Europe would have prospered. The problem was they decided they wanted to take over the world. And this is the issue that many people have with the Islam extremists, right? There are 57 countries in the world that have like Muslim majorities and that have Muslim-based laws, right? So if you believe in, and it's not that we shouldn't have Muslims in the UK, like I don't give a shit what religion, I mean, I feel bad for all of you. I don't give a shit what religion you have or what colour your skin is. I give a shit whether you're a good person. And most importantly, if you want to move into the United Kingdom, you have to then adopt our culture. So it's not about colour, it's about culture. And our culture does not agree with women being forced to wear certain item of clothing. And similarly, like, I don't think we should have Mormons, right? Or is it Mormons or is it the Amish? I don't understand why people aren't more up in arms about the Amish, who have a very oppressive religious view as well, right? So if you're going to be angry about an oppressive religious view, then you need to be angry about all religious views. Or you in America, you've had the Amish have their very own communities, their isolated communities for, decades, maybe longer. I'm not sure how long ago the Amish established. It's not something I've never looked into. But so then technically you should also allow Muslim silos and, Hasidic Jew silos, right? And then Christian silos. Like if you're going to allow one religious group to impart their very draconian ideals, which I would say kind of counters the Constitution, which literally says like freedom of speech is protected, that's what you non-stop go on about your First Amendment, and yet you have the Amish community where members of the community actually don't have that option, right? So let's stop being fucking hypocrites to all you over there in the US. You talk about our fucking freedom of speech issues. You got whole fucking communities where people are indoctrinated, like, stop the cults, right? All the cults. Let's stop all of the cults. Anyway, so if you want to live somewhere with Sharia law, if you want to live somewhere that oppresses women, if you want to live somewhere where it's okay to stone somebody, that's not the United Kingdom, right? So don't come here. And if you are escaping that type of life because you're in fear of your life because of everything that's going on there, then don't come here and then try to turn this country into that country. Like, does everybody see this fucking stupidness? And I didn't mean to kind of talk about all that shit, but so just kind of in the last day or so, the IDF and Israel agreed to terms of like peace, and then like in the last, I don't know, few hours, Hamas have agreed as well, right? But let's not forget, there've been 6 opportunities and 6 brokered deals to have a 2-state solution in the last 100 years. So it's not that this hasn't happened. They are at war. They are going to fight. They are going to kill each other. But we have to recognize that both sides, the same as Russia and Ukraine, like both sides are killing innocent people, because for some reason that's just what we do now in war. Like, I don't know when it became a thing, but all the times, you know, British troops have been over in other countries at war, killing civilians, right? Nobody gives a shit about I think it's almost 1 million Syrians who've been like murdered. Nobody gives a shit about the Yazidis who were butchered by the Arabs. This will kind of bring us on to where we're going. But I am not a fan of people. If you need asylum from a war-torn country, then you go somewhere that shares your values. And if you have to escape those values because they're the things that are oppressing you, then maybe you should escape those values completely, right? Or definitely not try and push it over here, because we don't share those values, and this is our country. And I say our country, you know, I'm not even fucking, I'm like only, what am I? Maybe half English? I don't know. How do you, like, so I could get exported, right? If they start changing the fucking Bill of Rights in the way that Farage wants to, I could get exported and de-citizened to Ireland, because my grandmother's Irish on my mum's side, right? My dad's English, like, since the Doomsday Book. But technically, I mean, going to Ireland normally would be quite nice, right? But that's worse than England at the minute. And I found something else out, like, earlier on today. There are 60 million people in South Africa. South Africa's fucking huge. It's twice the size of France. There's 68 million in the United Kingdom. We are fucking tiny. Like, people need to stop coming because the country's fucking full, right? It's tiny. Like, it's like midget fucking sized. It's like everybody's gone shoe shopping. It's like everybody with fucking size 7 feet gone shoe shopping, and they're trying to cram their feet into size 3 shoes, right? I'm a size 3 shoe, so I should be having the size 3 shoes. Like, you're not a size 3 shoe, so stay the fuck away, right? And I'm not comparing people to shoes, but that's how ludicrous it is. It's everybody is cramming themselves into like a teeny tiny fucking island when they've come from somewhere which has got so much fucking potential. And actually, all the reason why they come over here and say England's a fucking shithole is because they're not living in the slums, right? The people in the slums are not the people who are paying tens of thousands of pounds to fucking the human traffickers, right? Because the ones in the slums who are being kidnapped by the human traffickers aren't the ones on the boats. They're the ones who are kidnapped. They're the ones who are trafficked for organs. They're the ones who are already murdered. They're not the fighting age males that are landing at Dover, right? So there's different people. Those people who've been kidnapped probably were seeking asylum, but it's and it's going to get worse, right? So potentially the saving grace is that France has collapsed. I think Macron will just fucking string it out in the same way that Starmer's going to, right, until 2029. He is like, you know how they really joked that Trump is never going to leave, right? Like, he was refusing to leave the White House, and he wouldn't do a peaceful transition and all of that shit, which is like, considering Obama was like running Joe from the frickin' basement, and also was running the shadow government while Trump was in office, right? I think Starmer will just fucking refuse to leave. And then if we get close to 2029, then he will just enact the 2004 Civil Contingencies Act and then stop. What they may do is remove him and then throw in somebody more right wing in the Labour Party, right? Because this will segue us on. So you may have seen reports that Labour's gone right, which made Matt chuckle because he was like, what the fuck? And they've gone centrist, right? So why have they gone centrist now with the reshuffle? Because of Corbyn's party and because of the rise of the Green Party, right? So what they're doing is they're going to collapse the Labour Party because they've already got parties in waiting. The same as they're collapsing the Conservative Party because they've already got parties in waiting. Like, none of this is like power to the people. This is all orchestrated, right? People are pissed off with Labour and pissed off with Conservative. And so that means they're going to go more extreme, which means it has to be controlled. So we're going to kind of talk about the swing to, and I know you're going to think like, well, wait a minute, like we literally have a Muslim now running the whole Home Office. Politically, she's right of the lefties, right? So she is more conservative, and a conservative Muslim, I would argue, is not the same as a conservative non-Muslim, but technically. So we're going to do like a little bit of a deep dive into the four new people. So the shuffle, and I know like everybody's kind of like vying for the like taking Angela's Rayner's place at the moment in deputy, because Lammy's only interim, which I didn't realise, but it seems like people are kind of having to vote for so they're having a whole deputy leader contest. So Lammy might not be the deputy, but I also didn't realise he was the one who fucking kind of threw Corbyn into the mix. So that was interesting. I've never really I've kind of read around all of them, but never did any digging. And I feel like I probably need to exfoliate a lot afterwards and cleanse cleanse myself somehow. Okay, so we're going to be speaking about David Lammy, who at the moment is the Deputy PM and also responsible for justice. Yvette Cooper, who's now Foreign Secretary, so she was shit in the Home as the Home Secretary, and so now she's been moved to deal with foreign affairs, right? Because, yeah, you know, Shabina Mahmood, who's the Home Secretary, is from Birmingham, and I can tell you Birmingham's a fucking shithole. Absolute shithole. The Birmingham Council collapsed. So Birmingham's like 30 miles south. Been to Birmingham quite a few times. Birmingham has had bins and shit piled high, like for it's got to be over a year, right? Also, Birmingham hospitals were kind of fudging their books. And then they went out and showed all the other hospitals like what they should be doing. You know, they were kind of like touted as the gold standard. And this is because my mum used to work in the Princess Royal. And she was, we used to cover both Princess Royal and Shrewsbury Hospital. So they had people, you know, helicoptered in from Birmingham to tell them all the things that they should be doing. And then they, you know, like 18 months later, Birmingham Hospital's bankrupt, right? But they were touted as like, this is the way you should be doing it. So, and then now we've had their council go bankrupt. It is, and when I was campaign manager for Lucy, we used to do lots of door knocking in Birmingham. So if you've never heard the Brummie accent, it's a delight. I've got nothing against the Brummies, but they have a unique accent. But it's not. So it's sometimes known as our second city, right? It's like the second city, but it is just genuinely a socialist shithole. There's no other way to describe it, really. And the day that I was driving Michael go round in the car, we were in Birmingham. That's an aside. There's a random little tidbit there. We're also going to be talking about McFadden. Pat McFadden, who is now overseeing work and pensions, the DWP, and that is going to lead us on to some very spicy information. So first off, I kind of like dug into skeletons and, catalogued incompetence. So we cannot forget that Vance has just been over in the UK and he was like chatting away to David Lammy. He is not good people, by the way, Vance or Lammy, right? Like neither one of them. Lammy is we'll be careful. We'll get in trouble. So obviously he called Trump racist. He was the person who kind of pushed Corbyn. Then he's like distanced himself and said he doesn't. And there was another one who said that they kind of put Corbyn's hat in the ring and they said they did it for a joke. And it's all fucking coordinated. But we have to let them say what they want to say. But he's kind of like flip-flopping. A flip-flopping between Corbyn and Starmer. But so basically, he's been behind. He wasn't behind specifically the early releases, but he was for it, right? With the rapists and the murderers, not the people who haven't paid the TV license, not the people who were protesting by praying silently. Maybe that's why they were arrested, because people who pray loudly, like, when the Muslims have the mosques and they get into the street and pray loudly, they're not arrested. So maybe just like praying in your head is the thing that's unlawful in the UK. I mean, at the moment, it would sure seem so. But so he has been involved in promoting the concept of early release. Yvette Cooper, she obviously cranked up the boat arrivals. She also said that we are not having a grooming gang inquiry. Then we had the Cass report release, and then she said, maybe we are having a grooming gang inquiry. She was saying that we can't deport the illegals. Then she said, we can deport the illegals. So she was pretty, she'd wake up the next day with a different, completely U-turned idea. Like the last 18 months has been relentless U-turns and then U-turns again. So we haven't moved other than generated shitloads of more fucking debt because they've been laundretting money left, right, and center, as far as I can see, right, through Ukraine and over to Hamas. So then we've got Mahmoud. She's the one who actually started the whole prisoner releases. So she's gone from justice to Home Office, right? So she's gone from fucking with the prison system to now she's going to be fucking with the police, the National Crime Agency, who are the ones who are, coordinating all of the grooming, opening all of the old cases, of which there are 100 cases that they reopened pretty swiftly. So she's gone from allowing rampant Islamist extremists in the prisons to take over the prison systems. She would have been in charge when Lucy Connolly was in prison, when Tommy Robinson was in prison. I'm not condoning any of these individuals, but with just the track record of her tenure overseeing Justice Secretary is not good. To then get promoted to Home Office is ludicrous. And actually, she was a really junior member of Parliament before then. So she's kind of come out of nowhere, unknown in 2024, given a big fucking job, and now she's been given an even bigger fucking job, which is insane. And then McFadden, who's now in charge of work and pension, is the guy who's pushing the 5 billion benefit cuts and wanting to raise taxes for them. So remember, the benefit cuts are not to the illegals. They are to British people who fucking worked hard all their lives and then maybe come on hard time. Maybe they lost their job. Maybe, maybe they've had children and it's just too fucking expensive to work and pay for childcare. Or maybe they've become unwell because, they were conned by the establishment to take this experimental jab, and now they're fucking ill, because the number of people out of work and claiming benefits due to illness and sickness has gone through the roof in the United Kingdom since the rollout. And also to make it harder for people to claim PIP. Now, PIP is the personal independence payment, and this is specifically for people who have physical or mental health difficulties, and like pretty severe, right? So I love the concept of PIP because it means that rather than the money being just kind of like allocated to social services or the hospital or somewhere else, it's allocated to you as an individual, and then you can use it to purchase the services that you need. So this is the great thing about PIP, is you have the freedom to get the service that you need. Like, it doesn't matter what the service is. So when I first started, I used to get lots of people who would pay me for therapy through their PIP payments, right? So I actually have social services pay me directly for quite a few. And then, the Telford contract, Telford and Shropshire's, was it Telford and Shropshire or just Telford and Wrekin? Anyway, Shropshire lost the contract to look after Telford and Shropshire with regards to child and adolescent mental health, as well as like loads of other stuff. And it went to Birmingham, and they just stopped anybody from Telford, Wrekin and Shropshire delivering any of the services, right? So basically Birmingham collapsed and they took loads of our money and our contracts and they fucking shafted everybody. But the concept of PIP is great, because say if you live in postcode TF2 and in SY1, so that would be like Shrewsbury somewhere, there is acupuncture, like somebody that you could go get acupuncture from, and just because you live in Telford, it doesn't mean that you can't then access the service, right? So that was the whole point of PIP. It was to get rid of the postcode lottery around health. But obviously this fucking wanker is trying to get rid of it and make it harder for everybody. So then I kind of like looked into kind of socialism and left leaning, and it just, every time I tried to ask this staff to compile it. So I know all these things, and what I can, because I read stuff as it comes through. So like Telegram went like insane over the last 3 days with like relentless bits of information about all of these individuals. I try and get like Grok to just kind of put all of my madness and kind of like ramblings into some cohesiveness for me to make it faster. And every time I tried to get the stuff about socialism, Marxism, Fabian Society stuff, and talk about Fabian Society in a second as a little aside, it just comes back with, oh, I'm sorry. Can you ask the question again? I'm sorry you've overloaded me, right? So I've had to like copy and paste the chat into multiple Groks, and then rephrase things. I'm like, fuck's sake, like we've already done this work. I just need you to kind of put it in bullet points for me. Like, that's it. So Fabian Society, like everybody fucking talking about now, 100% psyop. I'm so bored of it, right? Nobody was talking about the Fabian Society when they were causing fucking havoc. Nobody was talking about the Fabian Society before the election, right? So it was only like 18 months ago. It's not like people have just woken up, right? All the people who should have been and were against the Labour Party didn't somehow come across the Fabian shit before then. Are you kidding me? Like, it's absolute joke. I am so fed up with the people pushing the Fabian stuff now. It just, if you want to know who not to follow, anybody talking about the Fabian Society as though it's breaking news. Right? That's it. Right? They have just told you that they are fucking paid. That's it. Like, it's the same as all the people who rose to fame during COVID. Right? That was the first indicator. Then everybody pushing all of the fucking protests, that was another indicator. So, but if you kind of like got waylaid and randomly picked up somebody on the side to follow, and now they're kind of pushing the Fabian Society, like, oh my God, Keir Starmer, they all are. They have to be. It's been going since the 1920s, so it's not a new fucking thing, right? The Fabian Society is is a left-wing think tank, but actually it's a sick fucking society. Like, worse than what people think the Illuminati do, right? So if you want to talk about sadistic and the stuff they do is horrific. Like SRA, you talk about satanic ritual abuse, like it's on par with that stuff. That's the Fabian Society, right? And they're all fucking Marxists, all of them. And so when you ask Grok, he says no ties, right? No ties to Marxism. But they all lean left, right? They have to be members of the Fabian Society in order to be on the ballot for Labour, right? It's no ifs, no buts, you must, which means you must then have these Marxist fucking ideologies. So Lammy and Mahmood voted against austerity. Cooper and McFadden are Blairite centrists, but back welfare expansions, right? So what are they going to be pushing? Well, they are pushing. So they got called out on the nationalism stuff, right? So they were pushing initially all the nationalism stuff. And what they've done with the reshuffle is they have simmered that down. And this all makes sense when we kind of go into the Green Party, right? So they've simmered down the nationalism because we have Corbyn's party, we have the Green Party. So they don't need to do it now. Remember, they're purposely trying to collapse the Labour Party. So Corbyn's still Fabian, right? They're still Fabian. It's not like the Fabian Society and the NGOs and the Quangos and all of that shit that are controlling the Labour. They're not being collapsed. Just the Labour Party is. And maybe they're going to collapse the unions because the unions are a mafia. And maybe they've decided they don't want the control of the unions anymore. But Corbyn's heavily tied into Momentum. Momentum is like here and over the USA. They do a lot of fucking shit in the USA. So don't quite know, but they are trying to collapse the Labour Party, right? So you have to, when you see all this playing out, you have to kind of keep that in your mind. I'd also asked with regards to the whole men or women stuff, but supposedly they were all fine. But obviously nobody could disclose what a woman was until the Supreme Court said what a woman was. And now nobody knows how to deal with that. And they don't know what to do now with the men who say they're women. Well, you send them to therapy like you should have done in the first place. Because it's a mental illness. So pro-Palestinian and anti-Islam. So this is what's really interesting. We've got a bit of both now on the front bench. So Mahmood is pro-Palestinian. She was she was involved with regards to creating the 2018 definition of Islamophobia. She is like heavy on the front lines with fucking, what are they called? Posters on sticks, whatever they're called. So she is very pro-Palestinian. Lami's a fucking Zionist. So this is why it's really interesting. He's also funded by Israel. So they are all pro-NATO. They're against capitalism. They are all towards the globalist agenda. They all want no borders. They want everybody to be treated equally. And when they say equally, they don't mean equal opportunity. They mean, because I work fucking hard and earn XYZ amount of money, then if you jump into the country on a boat because this person owns this much money, I'm going to give you this much money and this much luxury, right? So it's not about equality of opportunity. It's about, they call it like leveling the playing field, right? Level the playing field is through capitalism. It's not through socialism. That is telling people this is your place and you fucking stay there. And this is what makes me laugh about all the people who are fucking communists and support communism, right? My entire family, I say my entire family, my dad and his new wife, I mean, she's from Coventry, so, and, she's from a different background. I'm not trying to be snobby in any way, shape or form, but she's from a different background. So she was living in quite a deprived area, and growing up in quite a deprived area. I mean, we lived in fucking deprivation. We lived in RAF fucking housing, where my mum maybe ate dinner, I don't know, 4 or 5 times a week because she couldn't afford because you can't afford to feed your children, right? And we would have a tin of beans, 2 tins of beans and some toast. It was cheap food because that's all you can afford, right? If you're obviously not if you kind of jump on a boat and then get put in a barrack, but if you serve your country and you're put in housing which you pay rent for, so it was never even free for us. We paid rent for the houses that we lived in, and you rent it. We rented our TV, we rented our fucking video player, we rented our washing machine, because we couldn't afford to have those things as purchases, right? So I didn't. I'm not trying to say that I grew up in an affluent area, because I fucking didn't. But I grew up in a home where education and critical thinking and questioning things was encouraged. And I grew up in a home where my parents had a good level of education and intelligence, which obviously gave me a really good opportunity. And then it baffles me that my brothers and sisters are fucking communist, right? Genuinely, that's they're not left. They are fucking so far gone, it's crazy. So why it baffles me is because they want the best for their children, right? They want, not my little sister, she doesn't have any kids, but but she's all for the fact that she has a PhD and she's educated, and she wouldn't be allowed to do that. This is what they don't get, right? My big sister, she wants her kids to grow up and be whatever they want. They can't do that in communism. My brother, the same, right? And I just look at them and go, but what you want for your children is capitalism. Right? You want free market, you want opportunity, you want your kids to grow up and do whatever the fuck they want and get paid for it and enjoy life and buy a house and marry who the fuck they want. That's not communism. That's capitalism. And I'm the racist for pointing that out. and I'm the fucking Nazi, and I want them to say it to my face, because I want to be really offended and say, I'm not a fucking socialist, I'm a capitalist. Please don't call me a Nazi. I am not a national socialist. And then, you know, just fucking, but nobody says it to your face, do they? Anyway, we're talking about, but so it confuses me. So we have a bit of both now on the front lines. So we have, you know, pro-Palestinian, and we also have pro-Israel. So why are they doing this? They're doing this to kind of pretend, right? To all the perhaps pro-Palestinian people who aren't quite as insane as Jeremy Corbyn's. So Jeremy Corbyn tends to attract the you know, the rabid left, the youth, and then obviously the Green Party is getting like more rabid, youthy left. But so there's some people who are perhaps not that extreme, that never kind of would gel. So now they're going to be appeased. Oh look, we've got a Muslim and a pro-Palestinian. So Keir Starmer's finally listened to us, and obviously the entire fucking ceasefire will be because of Keir's reshuffle. It's got nothing to do with Trump ever. You know, threatening everybody. But you know, it's obviously Keir Starmer and the fact that he's had a reshuffle. So they're doing it to appease the people, to slow down the collapse, but they are still going for a collapse of the Labour Party. So every single one of them voted against the national inquiry. You know, not a surprise. Pretty much every fucking Labour person did. I mean, I don't think a single Labour person voted for it, if my brain remembers correctly. However, you know, Telford's MP did say, well, you know, I was fighting for the fucking grooming people. Wait, what? You know, the internet never lies and never dies. Like, are you actually fucking kidding me? All of Labour voted against it. So supposedly she is now saying, so supposedly she's the one who's pushing that's going to go in they're going to go in the barracks, right? Which is, you know, putting them in training grounds, putting them in strategic bases across the United Kingdom. I mean, they should be in the fucking prisons. If they want to use the army barracks, then what they should do is turn them into category C prisons, because they are encamped, right? So they are enclosed. So you take the non-violent criminals, so, you know, the junkies, the shoplifters, the failure to pay the BBC TV license, you take them out of the prisons and you put them into the barracks, and you can police those, right, quite easily. And then you put the actual fucking illegal people and the potential dangerous criminals in the prisons. Right. So what they're doing is they release the sex offenders and the violent extremists from prison, so that they can put people who are posting on social media hurty words in prison in their place. So let's not remember, though, our prison system is run by jihadi gangs at the moment. So none of them should be being released at all. Then we've got the 43,000, I do apologise because the statistics have gone up, 43,000 people on the terrorism watch list, the Islamic extremist terrorism watch list, right? So there's more terrorists, but everybody else is kind of like, you know, minimal. You probably could just watch through your binoculars all in the same place at the same time. But 43,000 people, even a fucking AI is going to struggle to watch all them at the same time. Do you want to know why? Because we don't have the fucking energy and the power to do it with our bloody windmills and our solar panels and our lack of water. That's why. So Lammy was at the Bilderberg 2022. He's, you know, besties over with the Council of Foreign Relations. Cooper is Yvette Cooper's funded by Israel. McFadden, he's got CFI trips. Mahmoud's pro-Palestinian. She had a trip in 2020. And I was kind of hunting for Muslim Brotherhood evidence, but supposedly there's no evidence for any of them, right? Not just Mahmoud, but pro-Palestinian and a trip in 2020. And she worked on the Islamophobia definition in 2018. I mean, she's not a moderate, I would say, because if you're a moderate Muslim, then you kind of get that Islam is not perfect. So Cooper and Mahmoud have been pushing visa thresholds and deportation, supposedly, but they're also then trying to get rid of the ECHR. They're also trying to get rid of the Human Rights Act. They're all still in love with open borders, though. So we're getting closer to us being labeled outlaws, right? And nobody's kind of like, still nobody's talking about this because nobody reads stuff. So the whole outlaw concept, which is what Farage is actually pushing with his Bill of Rights or whatever it is. I told everybody, be careful, they will push it again. This is one of the other things that they're going to be pushing IDs. They're going to be pushing the Bill of Human Rights again, Bill of Rights again, sorry, is because they need to remove it. Right, so Liz Truss was on fucking Andrew Gold saying you need to get rid of the Human Rights Act, and like the left and right politicians are adamant you need to get rid of the Human Rights Act. Right, if you want to stop the illegals, you need to get rid of the Human Rights Act. No, because literally says in there that if you commit a crime, you lose your right to liberty, you lose your right to freedom, you lose your right to the rest of these kind of things, right? You don't have a right to family life when you're in prison. So in that instant, because you've committed a crime, the Human Rights Act actually states, all bets are off, mate. We also already have other laws that people aren't using, right? We have laws to deport. Well, I kind of, Starmer rolled them back. But also there's loads of other countries that just say no. And nobody gives a shit about them, right? Why come to the country that's a fucking tiny island that's already bursting at the seams? Right? 60 million in South Africa. It's only 23 million in Australia. And I'm not saying they should all go to Australia. But let's just talk about perspective when it comes to actual geographical land mass. And the fact that our country is really, really old and the infrastructure is really, really old, which is why when they come over, they're like, this is a fucking shithole. I'm like, go home then. I don't mind if you want to go home. Not in the slightest. Or anywhere else. At all. Okay, so we're going to dive into the Green Party, right? So bearing in mind, they've moved towards the right, and they technically have, right? Starmer's like socialist, Marxist, like fucking loves it all. So it's all like pretend, right? I mean, the entire thing's pretend, but this is the pretend they're going with. By the reshuffling, they've moved to the right, which means Corbyn's left party, which has got the Muslim MPs who literally were elected on Gaza, like nothing to do with UK politics. They were literally only elected with regards to we need to eradicate the Jews because what is that song, like from a river to the sea, Palestine will be free, right? And I found out the other day something really interesting which I didn't know. So Hadrian, who built our wall, right? So we have walls, right? So the Roman, everybody loves the Romans, right? What did the Romans ever do for us? Well, they built us a fucking wall and they kept out the Scots, right? So if the Romans can build a wall to keep out the Scots, why was it wrong that Trump wanted to build a fucking wall? China built, I mean, that China was to keep the Chinese in, but, you know, different. But surely we can just put a fucking wall up. I mean, just... Anyway. So Hadrian, who built our wall, got really angry because this is like, what, 110, 130 AD. So, you know, Jesus has been dead for about 120 years. No, sorry, because he was born to... dead about 100 years. Who knows? But I don't know what age he lived until, because he didn't die on the cross. Anyway, so Jesus is dead, Hadrian's in charge, and he falls out massively with the Jews, like really pissed off with them. So pissed off that he kind of destroys Judea as a place. Right, it's just like, fuck that shit. Because what happens is the winners redraw the maps, right? We see this in World War II, World War I. What happens after that, right? The winners redraw the maps. So he was just like, do you know what? And I'm going to really push you off. I'm going to rename it Palestine after the Philistines, who were, you know, mortal enemies of the Jewish people. So before then, there was no Palestine, right? So it was just like a Roman fuck you. But also, we do have to remember that nobody's kicking off at Egypt for refusing to let them in to Egypt. And actually, they get shot if they try to break into Egypt. And that's why, you know, when all of those fucking peace warriors went, like the Egyptians were like, fucking no. We're not doing this. But again, remember we spoke about Egypt having fucking IMF loan. So who's really murdering the Gazans? I mean, obviously the Israelis are leveling Gaza, but if you are trying to... You're fighting a war. That's what's going on. They're fighting a war. And you are in enemy territory. And you are going house to house to kind of round up baddies. And then the houses keep getting blown up because they're rigged to blow. You are going to go and just level it, right? And let's not forget, and I've mentioned this before, Israel tells everybody, like, this is like days before, this is where we're going to hit, right? This is where we're going to hit, like, move all the civilians out. And then Hamas keeps the civilians there and rigs the houses. So there's lots of fucking shit, all the sides. But yeah, so finding out Palestine was named Palestine as a giant fuck you, Roman fuck you. That was something new. So on to the Green Party, who are this part, that 6% that Yuri Bemenov was talking about. The 6%, you remember we were talking about the bell curve, and we were talking about brainwashing, we were talking about like the what used to be known as the Red-Green Alliance, which is the lefties plus the psychotic jihadi terrorists, right? So it's the Muslim extremists. This is what we saw in Libya. They were like the lefties were besties. Lefties were besties with the Islam extremists. Then the Islam extremists got in and they shot all the lefties, right? And then that's happened like multiple times. And the same thing is what happened in all the kind of communist regimes as well. They're all like besties, and then they're like, no, you're just fucking insane, right? And you know, you want to talk about fucking nepotism, like it's not just the royal families. That's what happens. Is it's more of a boys' club because it's all about generational wealth. And even if you stop, like, so the people who rose to power in communism, they're not like the random people. They are the selected people who usually have got money. I mean, it's not like fucking Keir Starmer didn't have money before. Yeah, he's not like his parents were actually rich. I mean, look at fucking Rishi Sunak. I mean, I know he supposedly wasn't a lefty, but he's fucking globalist. But they already have money. So the Greens who everybody's ignoring, right? Everybody's pretending that they're like these eco warriors. They're fucking not. And I've been talking about the Greens for years because they were pushing the men can be women, like hard. Like that was written into their manifesto to basically completely remove the rights of a female. An actual woman has no rights because we've decided, right? So they were 100% behind and are well in. So 100% behind men can be women just because they fucking say so. And then the rights of the women being trampled is irrelevant because you don't count, right? You don't count. We need to protect the minority that happens to be the fucking white males, right? So everybody's angry at these fucking white males, except when the white males decide that they're going to be women, and then everybody praises them. Like, make up your fucking mind. Do you hate being oppressed by the patriarchy, or do you not? Right? Because any white man and black man and Indian man and whatever color man you are can now decide that you're a woman, and then they can overlord you again, and you're going to do that just because they've got a mental illness. But they haven't even got a mental illness. They've got some sick fucking fetishes 90% of the time. They're pedophiles. They are promoting bestiality with the fucking furry shit. Like, how nobody realizes that is beyond me. Like, the same as like fucking educated people being communists. We got Coca-Cola this evening, so give me 2 seconds. I apologize, it's not Coca-Cola in any way, shape or form, because that fucking stuff gives me heart palpitations and would probably give me a heart attack. This is Fever Trees. It's got quinine in it. It's good for you. Except the sugar. Right? The sugar's not great. Okay, so the Green Party, like, these are, people don't equate these with rabid left, but they are, right? So everybody sees Corbyn and thinks, oh, well, he's a bit extreme. Like, the left are, the Green Party are worse, and they have been getting progressively worse in the last few years. And not just in England, in Scotland, they're fucking insane. Like, legit scary, insane in Scotland. But I'm going to focus on like the Green Party. I don't know whether it's a national, whether it's UK as well, or whether it's I don't know how it's done. I mean, they usually have like their own version. I don't know whether they coordinate it up in Scotland. I don't know. Scotland tries to be like all on its own. Anyway. So Zach Polanski's been elected the leader, and Mothin Ali's been elected the deputy leader, and this all kind of happened over the weekend. So they got 4 MPs in 2024, right? So they've got the same number of MPs as Reform. And people think Reform are like extreme. Reform aren't extreme at all, and they have like fucking U-turned on 90% of the stuff that they said we're going to do, but obviously they're collapsing the right. So Reform got too big, right? It got people behind it who would have actually enacted change, so they have to collapse that, which is why we've got all of the other parties. But like the left, the Greens are bonkers. So Polanski in 2013 kind of said that he could enlarge women's breasts using hypnotherapy. So I remember there was loads of stuff about, I didn't know this was him, right? I remember like sorry. I remember like reading loads of stuff like years ago and being like, these people are fucking insane, thinking that you can just grow your breasts using hypnotherapy. I mean, so this is gonna sound a little bit crazy, right? If we follow the concept of epigenetics, I mean, I don't know whether breasts are triggered by epigenetics, but there was a study done where they took 30 men, and they're not growing breasts, by the way. They took 30 men to test the power of suggestion, the power of belief, and the power of visualization. This is like decades ago. And they took 30 men and they had 10 of these guys do like nothing different. And they all had very similar lifestyles and very similar diets. So they tried to control things as much as possible. And so 10 of these guys just like did the exact same thing as they normally did. And they took their muscle mass and their fat ratio and all of those kind of body-based metrics in advance. And this is only a really small population as well, though, so we have to be careful. But this was like one of the original studies, and then it's been like replicated like a lot over the past few decades. And then they took another 10 of the guys and they made them go to the gym, like how many other times a week, do how many other repetitions. So it was just kind of like set, you do XYZ's worth of exercise, strength training, and then you should increase your muscle mass by a certain percentage. And then they had this other 10 whose job was they had to go to the gym first to kind of like get to know what the strength training exercises were. And then their job was just to sit at home on the sofa, close their eyes and visualize that they were doing it. So I read this while I was at uni, right? So just like, I was like, fuck me, this is insane. So you have to bear with me because that was almost 20 years ago. And there was no like muscle mass increase in the control group. That's the group who kind of just did nothing. There was a 50% muscle mass increase over this period. I think it was 3 months they did it. Over this 3-month period in the guys who went to the gym. But there was a 30% increase in muscle mass from the guys who sat on the sofa and did nothing. So this is showing the power of belief, right? In essence, because you are triggering those electrical impulses in your body, and your body's, so your brain can't tell the difference between what's real, what's not real. It just, if it sees something, whether it's you imagining it or you seeing it in front of you, your body reacts in the exact same way. This is why PTSD is so like dangerous, right? Because you think it's happening right now, your body reacts. So this is why, elite sports people will rehearse a race over and over and over again. They will go to the track. They will, they will see it all. They will do it over and over and over again, so that when it comes to the time, they've already done it like a million times. It's not new. It's not novel. It's not anything to be afraid of. It's just they're on autopilot. So I get why he was saying that. Do I think it's possible? I mean, in the realms of our amazingness of our body, yeah, it really is. Would I trust a psychiatrist, a male psychiatrist, to be the one hypnotizing me to grow my breasts? Probably not, because I think that's a bit perverted. Okay, so let's kind of like put this another way. If you think you have got bad genes, right? So hair loss genes, and because maybe a member of your family like lost their hair really early on. you could have nothing wrong with your follicles, like physiologically, and you could start losing your hair. Or like everybody in your family could have like be bald, but you've decided my hair's fucking awesome, there's nothing wrong with my hair's great, and you have like the best head of hair. And so this ties into the placebo-nocebo effect, which we've spoken about like multiple times. There is so much evidence with regards to you being able to manipulate your entire body just through the power of your belief. Right? It's insane. And so, you know, you want to go to extremes. We've got like the spring at Lord's, right? Where you kind of like, you're complete cripple, you get in the water, you have rock solid belief it's going to heal you, and then you're healed, right? So there's 70 plus confirmed miracles where people have gone from having a documented, pretty horrific physiological condition. You know, most of the people who go like they can't walk, they can't speak, like, I mean, like, it's not somebody who's just got like a bit of a bruise, like extreme documented medical condition, and it has to be documented by multiple doctors. You have to have a history of it, like you have to take your entire case file, and then you have to have what's called a spontaneous recovery, and the only intervention being you know, dipping in the spring. And the last person who is documented was a nun. So and she couldn't walk. She'd like had an accident, and she, like, her spine didn't, she couldn't walk, right? And then within 48 hours she was up about walking, like just insane recovery. So there's over 70 like actually listed as sanctioned miracles by the church. That happens because of belief. Like, there's nothing else. Because if it, I mean, potentially the water is, you know, 5 to 8 hertz water. So it's like the fourth phase of water, more crystalline. But still, that wouldn't then have the almost instantaneous effect. You can literally heal yourself from all ills if you just believe it. That is documented and proven as fact, right? That's not it's not fake science. That's actually documented, but it's downplayed, obviously, because, you know, it's free. The problem is most of us don't believe it's possible, so it isn't going to happen. So do I believe that he should be vilified for his whole I can grow your breasts through hypnosis? I think there's other things we should probably be worried about. But actually it's pretty sound. There's scientific evidence to prove that it's possible, and it is physiological. So placebo effect and nocebo effect, like the nocebo effect kills people. Like, people literally die from being told the water they're drinking contains a poison that will kill them in 3 hours, and people then describe what is going to happen to them, and then they must take this other vial, and if they don't, then if they don't give them the information that they need, that's it. They're going to withhold the treatment. The people start then developing those symptoms, right? Even though there's just water in the water, right? Again, this is documented science. It's not fringe. It's actual evidence-based science. So is there science to kind of go with the things that he's saying? Absolutely. I mean, it probably made him quite a bit of money, to be fair. It probably wouldn't work for very many people, though, because most people wouldn't believe it's true. But I mean, why not give it a go if you want bigger boobies? I mean, it's free. Well, I say it's not free, but it's probably a hell of a lot cheaper and less painful than but you have to believe it, right? So in order for you to make it work, if you want to kind of go like And I don't know whether he does this anymore. He probably doesn't. But you probably find somebody, or his, you've probably got a hypnosis tape somewhere. You have to kind of dig into the placebo and nocebo science studies, right? You have to understand. You have to have rock solid belief that it's going to work. And then you can allow your subconscious to just listen and absorb the information. But if your conscious mind is blocking it, nothing will happen, ever. Which is why it's really hard to kind of overcome, like, fucking limiting beliefs. I just hate that phrase, limiting beliefs, because it downplays, and it's fucking personal development spin on something which is a known psychological medical terminology of negative automatic thoughts, right? Negative automatic thoughts is the clinical terminology for what people push is limiting beliefs, right? It makes me angry when we rename something for money, because that's all that happens. The same as imposter syndrome. There's no such thing as imposter syndrome. It's fucking anxiety. And anxiety is just fear, and fear is fucking natural, and it's important, and it's your survival mechanism. So keep it up. Like, keep your fear going. It should be there. So socialist views. So he was breast enlargement. But Ali has been involved in the de-escalation of the Hare Hills riots. I mean, that's interesting. So neither of them have got any kind of Westminster experience, but let's just remember they will also be being controlled. They will also be being selected. So it doesn't really fucking matter, because they can't do anything on their own anyway. So they are eco-socialists. So they want public ownership, right? They want NHS. It is already owned by the public. I don't know why that's not listed. Energy, rail. They are coming at the rear with the nationalism, same as Corbyn. They want to tax the billionaires, because obviously the easiest way to solve all of our financial difficulties is to drive away anybody who owns a company and employs people and pays quite a lot of tax already, to give to the people who can't be fucking asked to get off their arse. That's the best way to solve our economy problems. Yeah, they are against. So they are communist. They're against free markets. They're against the idea of austerity. And I mean, I'm against the idea of austerity, to be fair, because they've just fucking wasted the money. And just stop paying like shitloads of money to the Ukraine and paying $8 and a bit million a day to house illegals in the country, and we won't need austerity, right? So there's different solutions to making hardworking people even skintier than they already are, right? So there are different solutions. However, what they want to do is redistribute the wealth. So that means like take your money and give it to everybody else. Like, you're not going to get any distribution. You're going to have less money. The people who don't have any money, I would argue, probably got more money than me most of the time, because free housing, free food, free clothes, free mobile phone, days out, and they don't have to work for it. I have to work for all my fucking stuff. None of it's free. So they have time. Like, time is the most precious thing in the world, which gives them time to organize and become even stronger jihadis, I would argue. And also, time to go around raping little girls, because if they were having to fucking work, then they ain't got time. I mean, obviously they are like jumping on Uber Eats and Just Eat, of which Uber Eats turned around and said, well, if we get rid of the illegals, then you're going to have to pay more for your fucking takeaway. Well, you shouldn't be hiring illegal people anyway, because that's against the law. And to anybody who's still using Uber Eats and Just Eats, you're part of the fucking problem. Right? If lazy people weren't doing that, then there wouldn't be any jobs for them unlawfully, right? If I want food, I'm going to go get it. And the amount of times they've rocked up at people's houses and broken into, I mean, just anybody who does it still is just stupid. So they are 100% trans women or women. They are all in on self-identification. They oppose TERFs, which I thought was really fucking strong language. Like, how can you oppose a natural born woman? Right, so this is what I mean. And this is what I don't understand about any of the women who are supporting this. Right, they oppose anybody who is now following the law, because the law says men cannot be women, and therefore women's spaces are protected because they're for women. So that's the law. And that then makes you a TERF, which then makes the green person oppose you. And wasn't there that fucking person who kind of like said kill all the TERFs, and they got, aren't they like an MP or something? Not necessarily an MP, like a council or something. I don't know. I can't remember. I've read so much stuff. So they're all like fucking in on the climate bullshit, net zero, all of that bad stuff. And they're all in on, you know, Gaza. They are pushing Palestine because obviously Palestine has been oppressed and they're the victims. And they've never done anything wrong. Like, it's a fucking war. They're both doing horrific things on both sides. But they're all in on Palestine. So Ali, the deputy, was also part of the Islamophobia definition, right? So we've got Mahmoud, who's now in charge of who's the Home Secretary, and the deputy leader of the Green Party were both part of that 2018 Islamophobia consultation. And obviously we've just had the other one that they're trying to push through to make it into law, which is crazy because we already have like a hate speech law. So, I mean, you should be able to say whatever the fuck you want. Just turn somebody off if you're not interested. I mean, nobody should be... there's a difference to incitement, right? So we went through incitement with the whole Glastonbury guy, right? So there's a difference. And so that's what Lucy Connolly did. She was inciting, right? So that is a crime. And it wasn't just because of who she was talking about. She was inciting, which is a crime punishable to the same extent of actually committing the crime. The same as conspiracy, which I fucking love conspiracy law. There wasn't that's been on the statute books for a very long time. So we don't actually need hate speech laws. We don't need this extra stuff, because if somebody is calling for the rape, I mean, people tell me like, I hope you get raped all the time, right? Maybe I probably should start reporting it. I just can't be fucking arsed. Anyway, so if you are inciting violence, that's not okay in a lawful, peaceful society, right? You can't say that you want to live in a lawful, peaceful society, but it's okay to say fucking set fire to all these people in a home, right? Like, that's never okay. And even if you take it down, like, that's never an okay thing to say, ever. Neither is the stuff that other people said, right? You know, like kill all the white people, white people deserve to be raped, like all of that stuff. That's not good either, right? It shouldn't matter who's fucking saying it. It shouldn't matter who they're saying it about, right? And anybody who is saying we need to get guillotines and nooses for politicians, that's incitement. That's also fucking wrong, right? You can't say stuff about wanting to live in a peaceful society and you are anti all of this violence if you are then calling for violence, right? So stop being a fucking hypocrite, because it's just boring. But he is, you know, so, you know, obviously we need specific rules, like, because we're moving towards Sharia law, right? Because that's what Tony Blair was starting to kind of bring in. And we obviously, that's what Sadiq Khan's bringing in and Obama was bringing in the USA. Oh, dear. So obviously they both voted against the inquiry. Of course they did, the grooming gang inquiry, because why wouldn't they? Because, you know, British citizens' lives don't matter at all, right? So it's somebody who's been asked by a fucking radio host whether it's okay to send. So there was LBC, they were interviewing somebody from Reform, and they said to her, well, is it okay? Are you comfortable with sending a woman back to a country where they may get tortured or murdered? Somebody needs to respond going, is it okay that we allow people in who are raping and murdering and torturing our little girls? Because that's not okay. And this is the country I'm here to protect. And if that person has escaped the oppression and then is coming here and oppressing us, then if she wants to go and live that way, then she can go and live that way where they live it. Or they adapt, right? Adapt and become westernized. But why is nobody pushing back, going, but is it okay for the people who are jumping in the boats to rape and brutalize and murder little girls in this country? Because that's what's happening. And that's what we don't want to see happening. That's what everybody's against. And we don't know who these people are. And let's not forget that when we went into Iraq and Iran and Afghanistan, it was children and women and children who were strapping on fucking suicide vests and blowing up our armed forces. So just because they're a woman, it doesn't mean they're not fucking dangerous. Why doesn't anybody bring up Shamima Begum? And the fact that she might have been groomed, right? She might have been groomed, but her actions, she still then fucking promoted and recruited and was party to beheading people. And she was a woman. So the fact that they are trying to emotionally blackmail people need to stand up and be like, well, if they're terrorists, I don't give a fucking shit whether they're a woman or a child or a man. If they hate white people and they hate Western civilization and Western society, then yes, I am going to fucking send them somewhere that's not in this country. Like it's that simple. And nobody's fucking saying that, and it's really starting to piss me off. Like, it's that simple. Like, that's what they need to say. To go, well, Shamima Begum. Okay. I'm Shamima Begum, and then just stop. Because she was a fucking 15-year-old girl, right? So she was a child, but so she was a child and a girl. And everybody was up in arms about her coming back. I said she should have to come back. She should have to fucking face criminal prosecution in our courts because she's a British citizen. She had a right to be tried here. It was wrong, but she did. She was groomed. and she only wanted to come back because they were losing, right? But so they just need to say Shamima vegan. They just need to say, well, what about all the women and children who were putting on suicide vests and blowing themselves up and killing all of our military people, right? So, and women don't exist anyway. We're all just men, right? So the same people who are saying men have a right to be a woman, because obviously we're the same thing, then say you can't send an actual woman who doesn't technically exist because men can be women back to the country that they came from because they might be threatened because of the ideology that they have, but they want to bring that ideology over here where they will then be at risk. Like I just, nobody's using their brain at any point in any of this. So supposedly there's no WWF ties or Cancer Foreign Relation ties, but they are full-on globalists. But they are definitely not friends of Israel. So their manifesto decriminalizes channel crossings. They want to end the hostile environment. They voted against the 2021 Borders Bill. They want to have no borders. So they want to give all the illegals housing, NHS funding. They want them to have all the welfare stuff. They basically want boat jumpers to land on our shores and get everything because they deserve it, right? But they don't want the British people to have everything because we're racist and we're TERFs, and so we don't have a right to it, but you have to fund it. So you have to fund it, but you're not entitled to it. These people who've never funded it, who actually want to kill you, they can have it all. And your house, right? Because we've got compulsory purchase orders, which they were doing during HS2. People keep forgetting that the government's already been doing that shit. And they've had all that on the books since. So it won't be long before there won't be pig farm. I mean, can you see the elite giving up bacon? Because obviously they need bacon, because they need the pig farms, because the pigs are the ones who eat all the bodies of the people that they're trafficking. So, I mean, that'll be an interesting fight, won't it? I very much enjoyed my bacon butty on International Bacon Day over the weekend. Okay, so basically, like, the Greens are psychotic. So you need to keep your eye on the Greens. So we're going to quickly move into AFD deaths. So there have been now 7 AFD members and or candidates who've died in Thuringia, right, in one specific place between August the 28th and September the 6th. And September the 28th is the state election. So they've all been called like natural or accidental. So we got heart attacks, suicides and crashes. Now, bearing in mind in the 70s, the CIA was questioned on their heart attack gun, and things are a lot more sophisticated nowadays. You only just need to, so if you point it at somebody, you point the right frequency at somebody's heart, it gets them a heart attack. If you point it at their mind, it kind of makes them confused and kind of like you can like Alzheimer's-y stuff. And so the UK was looking into that as well, which is why Barry Trower was talking all about it. And Barry Trower, if you've never looked into him, he was UK naval intelligence, and he was tasked with microwave weapons and direct energy weapons during the 60s and 70s. It was part of the Cold War, right? So everybody talks about the USA, but there was the USA, UK, and Canada's tripartite agreement. Everyone forgets about this, where they all kind of did information sharing, which is why Dr. Ewan Cameron, who is the fucking psycho from Scotland, was in Canada doing the psychic driving, right? It was because it was part of the same thing. Thanks, Dee. Lovely to see you here. So heart attacks, I mean, they've got that right. Similarly, cancer, well, you know, that could be jab related, but also it can be frequency created, right? And then, you know, suicide, the same sort of suicide where somebody shoots themselves in the head and then also shoots themselves in like multiple, like it wasn't the one where somebody they shot themselves in the back of the head twice in a place where you can't actually fucking do it. Or there was that one who died from a gunshot wound, but then somehow managed to haul themselves up and hang themselves by a tree. Or there's all those people who kind of like die from like neckties on doorknobs, considering the doorknobs like kind of like waist height. Strange. And this isn't AFD, this is just kind of like random suicides. And there's all the kind of like random people who just happen to fall out of over balconies. And there was the singer who was the member of a boy band who was kind of dishing the dirt, right? And I haven't heard anything about that since. I need to maybe look into that again. Anyway, so AFD deaths have been 7 cases in 13 days, and the police have said, oh, yeah, no, nothing to see here. They have, AFD is 20.8% of the national vote. Now, we do have to bear in mind that AFD does have money that has ties to dark money and actual Nazi member money trickling down, right? So we all know that Klaus Schwab's dad was like a Nazi bestie, and his factory was awarded like by Hitler, right? Because it was just fucking awesome. It was the munitions factory, right? And I'm pretty sure he was at the wedding. Anyway, so we all know Klaus Schwab is a Nazi. We all know that Hitler didn't die, and they went to Antarctica, and they've continued to kind of pull the strings. But so we have to be careful, because while we were playing Israeli influencer bingo, I did express Israel's not the only country funding propaganda, right? So the UK government was funding, TikTok influencers. They are still funding TikTok influencers, all the climate stuff. So everything that you see that's being pushed is propaganda. The Fabian Society stuff that we're seeing right now is being pushed. People are being paid to do it. And obviously I was shocked to find out people get like a minimum of $1,000 to do it. And over here in the UK, we were paying like 5-10 grand for one social media post to some of these influencers, right? So you do have to like be careful and be mindful where some of the money's coming from. So it's not like it's unique for people to be suicided in, 7 people in one go is pretty interesting. But we also have all the people in France who are questioning Brigitte. They all started like disappearing, like saying that she was a man, like the doctor ended up dead. I think that's got something to do with Candace Owens, allegedly. Let's just say allegedly. But, she did marry her MI6 handler husband, and she is an actor or actress. I don't know, maybe she's an actor, who knows? An actress, so she, anyway. So it's not unprecedented that people are being bumped off. It's very unusual to have 7 in 13 days. 1 or 2, you'd be like, oh, that's really fucking unlucky. But 7 in it's 1 in 1.44 billion odds, right? That's just insane. Now, we've also had 2 assassinated people in the United Kingdom in the last 10 years. Right? Assassinated MPs. We had Joe Cox, who was assassinated not long before the Brexit vote, which was obviously for sympathy and to get everybody to do Remain. And if you look behind the scenes in the things that she was probably about to expose about the Labour Party, and then you see the rise to fame of her husband and her sister and all of that fucking dodgy money dealings. So she was obviously like hushed up, but hushed up on purpose because they were trying to get the just everybody to feel sorry for her, and that was done by a right-wing Nazi, of course it was, who was spouting UKIP rhetoric. Yeah, so it's a fucking paid. I mean, no, it probably wasn't paid. Like you think MK Ultra style turned on sleeper, right? Then we had David Amos, and nobody talks about him ever. It's like he was murdered in 2021, and his murder was not even really being talked about at the time. It maybe appeared in the news for like an afternoon, and that's it. Like it just fucking disappeared. Like none of the MPs demanded like protection and the equivalent of American Secret Service protection. Like none of them demanded that at all. Like there was a cone of silence around it even fucking happening. So why was the cone of silence around it happening? Well, because he was killed by a fucking jihadi, right? He was killed by Ali Harbi, who was Somali heritage, where he was born here, but Somali heritage, and links with and inspired by ISIS, right? So when we talk about those 43,000 people on the terrorist watch list, like in 2021, this guy probably wasn't even on the list. You don't think he's dead? She's dead. Joe Cox. I don't know. I think the Labour Party offed her. I mean, it didn't happen the way that they said, and it wasn't anything like they kind of. It's all psyoped with the way that it's done. Kind of like Jill Dando was like murdered, right? Because she was about to talk about the BBC covering up Jimmy Savile. I reckon she was about to kind of disclose Jimmy Savile stuff, because that is definitely going to get killed because of the ties to, at the time, all the people who were still in Parliament who were raping and abusing and murdering children and throwing them off yachts. But I remember looking into the Joe Cox stuff quite a bit. And there was lots of really fucking dodgy money ties. And her husband's kind of like prominent stance straight after. And having been kind of not involved, but having been around male Labour Party members and the way that they treat women, so you talk about fucking misogyny, and we talk about fucking women being owned and treated like trash. Like that's how the Labour Party treat women. Like it's disgusting. And so I firmly believe that she was going to expose something. I mean, maybe it was to do with the grooming gangs as well. Maybe she found out, right? Because she was Leeds? She Leeds? Or was she Liverpool? She looked north, but not like in the Cotswolds, right? So somewhere where there's, well, let's just hold on. Was she Liverpool, Merseyside? Batley and Spen. Where's Batley and Spen? West Yorkshire. Oh, here we go. Yeah. Oh, well, that's a really shitty image. Yeah. So up north, I mean, it's, so if you think about all the gun running and drugs and stuff that goes on up there, so if we kind of move, like, so Batley and Spen looks like it's in the middle. So if we go across to Liverpool, in 2020 we had the Liverpool mayor who had to step down because of, well, I say step down, like he was arrested, wasn't he, for trafficking, for arms dealing, like all of that stuff, right? Because they have the port. But then it goes into Manchester, which is, you know, Andy Burnham's territory. But like it's all run like a fucking mafia. But I think she was probably more than likely going to speak about some of the very horrific things that happen in the Labour Party. So when I was a parish councillor, for the Conservative Party, because that's who I helped get elected, right? This is before I realised how fucked they were. Everybody who was, so it's parish, right? This is not even like fucking, okay, so this is like teeny tiny, this is like parish. This is like the lowest ebb of the political spectrum. You have quite a big budget and you are responsible for quite a lot of things, like financially, but you know, like teeny tiny little ants, not MPs, with no voice. Like if you think about, so back where, you know, 2016, you definitely didn't have a voice. Like there wasn't like Zoom meetings going on and people didn't really know what was going on back then. So and this is unlawful, by the way. So the Labour whip, or the council whip, will tell everybody how they have to vote, right, before they kind of vote. And they do that in Parliament, right? They do that. And then if you don't do it, then you get your whip removed. That's not how it's supposed to be. You're supposed to be independent. Anyway, if they don't do it, they get the Labour heavies go round. Like people have had bricks through the window. These are like party members who are on the parish council. They have bricks through the windows. They have fireworks through letterboxes. They have like dog shit through letterboxes. They have like, if they're small business owners, their businesses are harassed. They can't get contracts. Like, so this is like fucking, they're like a mafia. And so she probably saw it all. And they found out. Because, and the way that they treat women is bad. So, and so you, when you're kind of like a parish member, when you're campaigning, so not all the people who were kind of helping the Labour Party are fucking psychotic, but when you're campaigning and you're on the streets and you kind of like meet somebody and some of them are normal and you're having conversations and you find stuff out. And I can tell you the shit that goes on the Conservative Party is bad. I was horrified to find out what happens in the Labour Party, right? Because they're not typically from backgrounds where people have, it's not, they're just high levels of intelligence. And this is not me being a bitchy and awful. But if you have grown up in a council estate and you treat everybody like shit, when you get treated like shit from somebody else, it's normal. Whereas if somebody was treating me like shit, I'd fucking call them on it, right? Because that's not how I grew up. She was mates with Cliff Richard, and it was kind of all, yeah, Elm Glass House. So it's around the whole. It's 100%. It's around the paedophiles in Parliament, and this is why I'm saying it's Jimmy Savile, because Jimmy's the one who was trafficking everybody. So like people talk about Epstein, like Jimmy was the fixer, which is why Maggie was using him. And why she was able to do so much is she kept Jimmy Savile close. Because then she had her finger on all of the fucking blackmail. Do I agree with what she did? No way. Do I understand why she did it? Yes. Am I grateful for how she used it to help the British people? Yes. Do I also know that she probably didn't have a choice? Pretty much. I mean, look at what they do to Trump. Right? Who's seen it all happen multiple times. Back then in the 80s, you were isolated, you were on your own. Which is why everybody vilifies her so much. Is because she fucking was telling everybody like it was, and she was anti-globalist. She was not. She was fighting it and fighting them before they had their fucking, like, what it was before. So the first thing Tony Blair did, right, he was kind of after. I mean, we had fucking John Major, that wet lettuce. But that's what, as soon as Tony Blair was in, fucking reversed everything Maggie did. Reversed everything and fucking put us under the thumb. But yeah, so I reckon Jill Dando was that was Jimmy Savile stuff she was talking about. Because remember, Ted Heath and all of that was still alive and still heavily involved. And so the Reigns list and all of that, I think, was because they downplayed it with the whole satanic panic stuff that was coming over from the USA. We had the twins. What were they called? Who were they? The Hammersmith twins. We had the police chief, a Yorkshire police chief, who was kind of finding lots of shit out and starting to, talk about the fact that there are these paedophile rings, and then he got removed. So all of that was happening around the time that she was randomly murdered. But it makes me like, so obviously they don't speak about David Amos, right, at all. So he was, so it's not AFD people being murdered is not like uncommon. I think it's probably it is not unusual. No, it's still not the right words, because it is uncommon, it is unusual, but it's not that it's not one of the party tricks that they use. That's what I'm trying to say. It's something that we know they do, right? People do. So what did they try to do? They try to put Le Pen put her in prison, right? So they will get rid of the opposition. So what they're doing in the UK is obviously they are collapsing the two main parties. They're creating the extreme parties. And then even the people who are in the centre will be forced to go with one of these extremes, right? Because you don't want the other extreme to get in. It needs to be just needs to be independence. So finally, well, before we kind of talk about the lunatics, Scottish independence, right? We are being psyoped, and this kind of leads into Operation Raise the Colours, or whatever that fucking psyop is people are again going to start pushing for English votes for English people, and it devolved England and England only parliament and breaking up the union, and we've got the Scots, the SNP are again trying to say, well, we need to do a referendum. And obviously Northern Ireland and Scotland both were heavy Remain, and England and Wales were heavy like Brexit. And the younger votes are like pro referendum and pro independence in Scotland, and obviously they dropped the age of voting, which they did in the UK, right? So remember, they dropped the age of voting and they're all fucking extreme. So we're gonna have a huge fill on the Green Party and a huge fill on the crazy left with Jeremy Corbyn's party, because you've got the 16 and 17-year-olds. Doesn't mean they're gonna get out on the day and vote, no, because they're fucking lazy. If it rains, right, that's what we need to do. We need to crowdsource, and we need to have enough money in the bank so that we just fucking make a downpour on the day of the next general election, because they don't go out and vote in the rain. Like that's like statistical. They don't. And especially if they think they're winning, because, oh, it's raining, somebody else will vote. We've already won. My vote won't matter, right? So what we can do is we can push all the fact that they're winning, and then we just make it rain. I mean, would that be... It's not election meddling, is it? Just changing the weather, because that's what the government does all the time. Like, we're just, well, you do it. You change the weather. Why can't I change the weather? So, but here's the thing. It is so fucking dangerous. It weakens us immensely. Right now, we have quite a lot of clout because we have the union. Because of the trade agreements between us, because of the fact that we have a few hundred years worth of shared, I mean, a few hundred, we've got like a long shared history, right? But stability, a few hundred years, kind of. But this is why you see the push of it's okay to be Scottish, it's okay to be Welsh, it's okay to be Irish, it's okay to be Northern Irish, but it's not okay to be English, right? Do you see how they're kind of pushing that? Like, if you are a Scottish nationalist, it's okay, but if you're an English nationalist, you're a racist. Like, figure it out. I can't figure it out. But so it will make us so much weaker. Scotland will end up owing, like, we'll need to pay an extra $2,500-3,000 a year to cover the stuff that they get out of Westminster. Right? Because they get extra money. Right now, they have free prescriptions, they have free university, they have access to like the NHS. That's not Scottish. All of those things, all of their infrastructure, and Wales, all the infrastructure is done and funded through central government. They're given the money. And they say they've got North Sea oil, but they're not they're not mining it. They are using fucking windmills, and they are not they don't even have a currency. And they didn't have a currency back when they did the first Indie referendum. They don't have a currency now. And if they decide to go independent, then as people living in England, we tell them that they can't have the pound. Right? I think we need to blackmail them. They don't have a right to the pound. It's sterling. It's not theirs. It's not their currency. Get your own fucking currency. And because they won't have their own currency, they won't be allowed in Europe. So they will just be on their own with no income, no intelligence, because they are fully left captured. So they won't. So they're fucking socialists, right? So they're not like building stuff. There's no industry coming out of Scotland. There's no the financial sector is in London. There's no, like, what are they doing up there? I mean, and I know that they can't get workers. I know they've been flooded with immigrants. I know that the businesses that are up there, and even long-standing businesses, are fucking collapsing because they have no skilled workers. They can't get people to work because the immigrants aren't working. The young people are on benefits and they're fucking educated until whenever, and they want to just, you know, they're too lazy to work. And people don't want to move to Scotland because it's fucking cold and wet. And so this is when you speak to actual business owners, they have no faith in the Scottish government and or the majority of the Scottish people. Not that they don't have faith in Scottish, but with regards to being able to actually, you know, make Scotland work as an independent country. And so these are the people with the money and the people with the businesses are not the people who are pushing for the indie referendum. But the problem is they're the minority. So it's bad. So here's the other thing that's really interesting. 26% of pro-indie X accounts are being funded by Iranian bots. They're Iranian bots, right? So it is being pushed by the jihadi terrorists, which can only tell you that it's designed to weaken the country. Right? Because if we don't have the clout of the entire United Kingdom and, you know, British Isles, and so they're separate for anybody who's from America. The United Kingdom includes Northern Ireland. British Isles it doesn't include Northern Ireland. So without the entire clout, like, we are teeny tiny on our own and overrun by an invading force that everybody forgets about. The indie referendum is full globalist. Like, it was bad when they were first doing it. It's even worse now, and now it's being funded by Iran. People need to wake up and smell the fucking psyop. You know, well, maybe we need to kind of like fuck for Hadrian's Wall. We have to police the border at the top, right? I don't think anyone who's an MP, whether you're an MP or a Scottish MP, I don't think you should be allowed to receive money from people in the rest of the United Kingdom if you're campaigning on leaving, because your wages comes from my taxes, right? And you don't want to be part of mine, so then you shouldn't be getting paid. Because if you don't want to be part of England, then you don't want anything to do with England, then give us your fucking money back. Stop claiming your extra houses in London for free. Stop claiming, like, you know, that's not, Scottish people aren't funding that. The entire taxes from all of us, of which the majority come from England, because we've got more people, we've got more industry, we've got more businesses. Okay, right. Let's deal with the lunatics. And give me 2 seconds while I open it up. So why am I saying lunatics? Well, because we're still kind of like in the like hangover of a full moon. Let me just, because this is in a different place. I want to get my research. 2 secs. because I want to give you some studies, and not studies that I'm trying to remember from 20 years ago. These are like recent research into lunacy. And so it's called lunacy because of the increased irrational behaviors that happen as part of the lunar cycle. So lunatics and lunacy is not like an offensive terminology. It's a medical term for the increased spike in mental instability. I just need to find where I put it in my, I don't know, 3,000 page workbook that my clients, one-to-one clients get. Pretty sure it's in this one. Yeah, there's the moon. And so let's not forget that the Catholic Church used to have the lunar cycle in the, so if you see the Bishop's Bible, so there's a 1564 Bishop's Bible that you can get on archive.org. I mean, it is written in Old English, so like the S's look like F's, and so some of the language is a bit like I need to kind of figure that out. But I kind of downloaded it to try and see if I could see the differences between what we're saying with King James's version, which came afterwards. And what you get at the front is they are tracking the moons, because obviously, like it's pagan. Right? They just kind of standardized what pagan they're going to speak about and what pagan they're not going to speak about. So the moon is, and it used to be like this whole kind of like urban legend and little myths that people went a bit crazy around a full moon. However, when you looked at crime statistics, and this is where I first kind of heard about it, was when I was doing criminology side of it. Funnily enough, it wasn't in the psychology side of my degree. It was in the criminology side, because they were talking about the fact that they all, like police and we were talking about the invention of the police through the peelers and Robert Peel and all of that stuff, which is why I get so sad with what's happened with the police service. So it's not a force, it's a service. How they have to have increased numbers because more crazy shit happens, right? But obviously they were saying, oh, it's not true, it's all fake. It's real true. It's real true, right? So let's just start by understanding huge portions of our body is water, like lots of it. So around 70%. And it varies if you're male and you're female. It varies whether you're prepubescent, whether you've been through the menopause, and also different parts of your body varies with how much water there is, right? So, but huge chunks. Come back to you, Linda. So huge chunks of water in our system, and everybody accepts that the tides come in and out, and we know, and that's not just the moon, right? It's like it cannot be the moon's gravitational pull, because the moon's like this and like the Earth's like this, right? You're telling me this teeny tiny thing is so strong, like it overpowers the Earth's gravitational pull? And we're not going to talk about whether gravity is real or not real. Let's just kind of like within the bounds of some of the concepts that we know about. Okay, so it's not. It is an interplay of the moon, the Earth, and the sun, right? So when the sun's gravitational pull is weaker, because the sun's like the big fucking thing, then it gives the moon's opportunity, and then the Earth's. So it's an interplay between all three. But we acknowledge that the tides move, right? They go in and out. And then somebody was saying they're not moving, the Earth's just spinning differently. I mean, just moon, tides move. Big bodies of fucking water and sun. But the moon's involved, which means it absolutely can affect the water in your cells, right? To think otherwise is just ludicrous, right? This comes back to the whole retarded notion in quantum physics of big and small, right? Which they've never been able to prove, right? So there's some quantum physicists who decided that things like it's not entrainment. Entanglement, which is where two things, like say two atoms, regardless of their distance, which are entangled, they're kind of like joined at the hip, like Siamese twins, right? It doesn't matter that there's like vast distances between them. When one's doing one thing, you can guarantee what the other one's doing because they work in tandem together, nonstop, and they will change instantly if they need to change. So they propose that it only happens to little things, because it obviously doesn't happen to us as humans and we're big things, but they can't decide what the little and what the big thing is, right? So that's not true. If an atom does a thing, a collection of atoms must also do a thing, otherwise it won't be an atom. It just, because atoms have certain properties. Therefore, multiple atoms are still atoms. Therefore, they have the same properties, right? So this is just it. So the fact that the moon, the Earth, and the sun all kind of like fuck with the water on the Earth means that the moon, the Earth, and the sun all fuck with the water and the humans, right? That's logical. We're going to kind of like follow the logical train, and then I can tell you like how much it fucks with it. And again, the sun does as well. So why is it important that we kind of consider the moon? Well, the water in our cells transports the amino acids is involved in protein synthesis, ensures proteins are folding and functioning correctly. And so like mad cow disease and Alzheimer's occur when the proteins fold incorrectly, so they kind of like fall over. If you've ever seen, it's like really sad if you've ever seen like a protein like fall over. It's kind of like, oh, it's I mean, it's cute, but it's designed like, it's like drunk, right? Get drunk protein. It also enables digestion and nutrient absorption, right? So it's really important. I mean, it does lots of other stuff, but it's really important, just those basic bits. So interesting, there's also a direct correlation between the amount of water we consume and our body fat, right? But women have like a higher healthy fat concentration than men because they need to, because they're designed to, give birth. So if they, it's for energy, right? So that's what fat's for, it's for energy, which is why I get very frustrated with the men pretending to be women who are like, but look at my slender body, and I'm like, well, that's because you're a man and you're designed to have a lower fat content. And if women are attempting to look like the men just because they need to feel better, it's insane. Like, women literally designed to have higher fat content than men. So I mentioned we've got different water, but so our brain and heart are 73% water, and then other bits are different, but 73% of your brain and your heart will be. So the capacity for them to function and what they're doing will be influenced by the moon, the sun, and the Earth, kind of with regards to the energetic interplay of where they are in the positioning of the solar system at any given time. So the less water we have in our bodies, the fewer chemical reactions that occur in our bodies, which is why you need to make sure you're drinking water frequently. And I know I've got Coca-Cola next to me, but I've drank a lot of water today, and I always have like one treat drink at the end of the night. So when the moon and the earth spin, the pull of the sun's magnetic field on the earth changes, and then that changes the ability of the moon to pull on the earth. And without the additional pull of the sun on the earth, the moon's pull is able to jostle with each of the individual water molecules, which covers 71% of the earth. It's really interesting, isn't it, that 71% of the earth is covered in water and 73% of our brains and hearts are water, like really similar numbers. And they do very similar numbers with the rest of the creatures on the earth, right? So this is where the as above, so below stuff comes in. It's not a cult. If you actually internalize that concept, you will start to understand things on a deeper level. And a cult just means like hidden and secret, right? So in the same way that if you look deeply into somebody's eyes, you notice they look like fucking universes, and atoms are like little, like you get like the nuclear ball of sun in the middle, then you get like the planets flying around it, and you get like energy coming, like it's like a fucking its own little solar system, right? So teeny tiny little atom is the same as the fucking, so as above, so below, as within, so without. It's like it's the same, like it's telling you that it's the same. So if you observe something outside, you will be observing something also, similar reaction inside, right? So we are electromagnetic beings, and the earth is an electromagnetic thing, and the solar system is an electromagnetic thing, and the universe is an electromagnetic thing. Like it's just that's what it means. So please don't freak out. It's like just when you learn something new about the outside world, really, if you have that in your head, it will blow your mind with the things that you really start to understand about how phenomenal humans are. So when we are so atoms are fizzing, right? Because they're always moving. They're vibrating. That's where we get, and that's why I call it like an atomic hum. So your frequency, your energetic frequency, I call the atomic hum because it's literally the sound that you're at. So only sound frequency, but it's the rate at which your atoms are vibrating. And the rate at which your atoms are vibrating determines how healthy or unhealthy you are. And obviously lunacy comes because of the increased mental illnesses that used to come from the moon. Here we go. So during the full moon, there is a statistically significant increase in the number of irrational human actions. Where is my science stuff? Oh, I haven't copied it over. Let me just, darn it. Oh, that's all my lithium stuff. Not like my lithium stuff, but like with regards to lithium. Sorry. Okay. So here we go. In 2019, they did a study in Switzerland with 17,966 inpatient psychiatric cases, and they found that just stop working. Well, that's just all deleted. So there's major issues with bipolar. There's issues with depression and stress and mental health and sleep. And obviously, if you have issues with sleep, then that's going to increase with regards to issues. And bipolar is, I say it's interesting, but when there are solar flares, you're more likely to have a bipolar flip if you're male, right? And you're more likely, even if you're like slow cycling, which means you kind of like take a while to go from up to down, is during a solar flare, is that will happen faster, and you're more likely to flip, and that's to do with the sun. And also, if you have multiple sclerosis, you will have a relapse, and you'll have a relapse 7 to 9 months later, right? Because the effect is lasting. So, but similarly with the moons, there's an increased incidence of depressive episodes, issues with bipolar, more being depressive, and then issues with sleep and issues with increased anxiety. So all of these things, if you have and are consciously drinking healthy levels of water during a full moon, chances are you may be able to kind of stave off the effect. So the thing to remember is that sometimes you feel crazy, not because you are crazy, just because the sun and the moon and the earth's energy is fucking with you. In a nutshell, right? So it's always handy. I urge everybody, right? So if you find that you have emotions that are up and down, it's really interesting if you just get like a calendar, like a cheap calendar. You usually get them for like £1, probably be even less because you're in the middle of the year, and just start tracking on a calendar that doesn't have any kind of moon information, doesn't have any information at all whatsoever. So don't look at the moon stuff at all. Just start tracking how you feel. And obviously, if you're a lady, then it's important you are also tracking your menstrual cycle, because that also interplays with how you feel. And actually, it's a really important thing that we should be getting young girls to do. Is because I believe most of them will realize they don't have anxiety. It's just it's their cycle, right? Because even happy, healthy people feel like cranks for like X number of days. Like I wake up for about 2 days a month feeling like the world's ending. Right? Nothing's changed in my life. The world isn't ending any more than it already was. It's just because my hormones are flipping from one to the other. So either estrogen's disappearing and progesterone's flooding, or progesterone's disappearing and estrogen's flooding, right? That is going to fuck with your mind and your body. And this is why I think so many women are misdiagnosed with bipolar, and it's just their fucking cycle. Because no doctors say to you, when you're having these issues, does it happen like maybe every 3 weeks or so? Do you know how long your cycle is? Have you tracked your cycle? Are you doing some maybe BBT temperature testing to see when you get your dips and your spikes? Like when people say that they're depressed and they've got a newborn and they get diagnosed with postnatal depression, and I'm like, well, when did you last fucking sleep? Because if you haven't slept in 3 days, you're gonna be a bit depressed. And when you're pregnant and you feel like shit because you're fucking exhausted and something inside you is eating all your food and taking all your energy, taking your brain cells because it needs them, gosh, you're going to feel crazy. Should you be diagnosed with a clinical condition? No. Not in any sense of the word. Why? Because then we tell people that you're depressed, you have this medical condition, like now you need to start taking all these fucking drugs to sort your brain out. Just somebody take the baby for like a day and let the new mum sleep. And then they'll wake up and they won't be fucking crazy anymore. We know sleep deprivation makes you insane. And we know sleep deprivation does horrific things to your mind and your body. It's why it's used as a torture. Yet nobody seems to be like, I mean, you're looking a little bit tired. Have you eaten? Are you eating? Are you exercising? Have you watched anything that made you laugh? Are you interacting with any, adults at any point? No. Right, okay, so you're feeling isolated, lonely. Yeah, of course you're going to feel depressed. That's not a mental health condition. That is a society-based condition you've now found yourself in, and this is the result and the ramifications. And the amount of people I've treated who were diagnosed with postnatal depression, and then they were put on drugs, and then 20-30 years later they're still not working, they do not even know who they are as a human being. This is why I'm against it, right? So we went way off topic with the loon stuff, but it was like we just had a full moon. So if you saw lots of crazy stuff, like we literally just had like loads of crazy stuff the last 3 days with regards to politics. So Scotland and Wales and Ireland have their own parliament. Sinn Féin, Scottish Nationalists, and Westminster. The English only have Westminster, active Soviet Union. So we do only have Westminster, and I think we should not have done devolution. Right? I think that was wrong. What they've done is they've turned us into a mini United States and a mini Europe. And that's not what made our country great. What made our country great is being a unified, yes, we had some complications, but we had a unified identity, and that's what made us strong. And the only point to devolution, the only reason for devolution was to start pushing the breakup of the country, right? Because if you think about our history, right, we may have, right, colonized a lot of the world, but we didn't just go and enslave these people. Like that's the lie. We went and we took the education that we had. We went and liberated many societies that, maybe they didn't have books, didn't have radios, didn't have light, didn't have electricity, didn't have the Industrial Revolution, didn't have any of the things that we had. The stuff that our ancestors had fucking fought for, you grafted for, developed, created, understood. People were just given on a platter. And yes, they had to fucking work, but the same as the bloody white people were working back in the cotton mills, were working in the fucking fields. So the psyop is that everybody in England and England, because obviously Wales and Scotland and Ireland and Northern Ireland were oppressed because they don't have their own political. This is why it's so fucking retarded. The impression is that everybody who lived in England was living in a fucking castle when we had the fucking workhouses, right? We had kids weren't going to school because they were out in the fields and out in the farms, and it wasn't until the Act of Parliament that forced them into schools in the Victorian era, which obviously was about control and brainwashing and all of that stuff. But it's still, what it did is it gave us an opportunity to be educated, which massively advanced our capacity to innovate and create and better ourselves. And so 61% of all of Scotland's trade is with England. Like that will, they won't have that ease at all. People will relocate. So Scottish businesses with their heads screwed on will relocate to England. They won't be insular. They will just move. The same as people just fucking move to America, right? Same as the billionaires are leaving. They're not stupid. I mean, I don't know what Wales is doing at all. They're a law unto themselves. But yeah, so the only reason why the whole devolution thing was happening is you look at the governments who were in power, who were pushing it. It was to completely destroy the United Kingdom. That's it. We need to be destroyed, because I know everybody posits America as the last bastion of fucking freedom. Like, you guys have got all your hope on one fucking man, and you're still like just fucking lazy, expecting everybody else to do it. Like, we don't have anybody in charge who actually has our interests at heart. We don't have any MPs, none of them, not Rupert Lowe, not like they're all fucking selected, every single one of them. We have our entire parliament, our entire judiciary, our entire fucking police service. All of those are against the British people. They're all against us and for globalism, for the destruction. They're all in on the plan, right? And I'm going to say it again and again and again. And we were the first country to roll out vaccines for the Rona jab. We were also one of the only countries in the world, and I'm going to say one of, but I'm pretty sure we were the only country that did not mandate the entire population to get vaccinated to work, or access supermarkets, or access services. We're the only country in the world that blocked that shit. Because we have written in our laws that the only way the country can can change a law, bring in a law, is they have to have a consultation. We have the fucking, what's it called? The petition process. I mean, don't get me wrong, like, it's all bullshit because they just decide to say, oh, we're not talking about that, right? But they have to have a consultation, and then they have to have an impact assessment. So when they change a law, they then have to go back out and find out whether they made it worse for the British people. Because if they made it worse, they have to reverse it. Like, that's in our laws. We also have in our laws that Parliament cannot create a law that like the next Parliament can't undo. So if we had somebody like Trump who actually cares about his people in our office, they could literally walk in and just rip up everything that's happened since you need to go before World War II. Because it was World War II where they really started putting the shit laws down, and then they kept them on the books. And so lots of the things that they've done recently, they're not new laws. Like, people are like, oh my God, this is a new, no. They've just amended laws from like World War II. Like, this is why people were starving in the United Kingdom after the war had finished, was because of the stuff that Labour did with regards to the food. So during war, the government kind of said, okay, well, you need to grow XYZ to the farmers. You need to grow this, you need to grow that, and coordinated it all, right? So everybody was kind of growing the food that we needed so we'd survive. After the war, Labour government got in, they didn't repeal that. They actually took over and co-opted even more of the farms, and then fucking bankrupted them. And then we had food crisis and starvation. Like, people were starving after World War II and still rationing, right? When like, during the war, we turned fucking school fields and everything into like food production. But yeah, you need to like fucking remove it all. Gone. I would go further back. I would, if I was doing it, I would go back to before the 1900s. And I would scrutinize. And I would put it out to the public. I would task the members of the public to go through the legislation and see which legislation is just fucking with the country. Just rip it all up. Completely. Because that's why we are where we are. But so any politician who is saying we can't do XYZ because of XYZ law, like it literally says no law can be created that can't be undone. So they're just not doing it. They're just refusing to do it. And yes, we've got the civil service who are fucking, you know, holding the MPs' balls at the moment. But you just fucking change the law. That's their job, is to put in place laws that protect the people. And think about COVID law, right? They spoke about that in a bar. They were chatting about that in the, you know, Houses of Parliament bar, and then the next day it was fucking through the House of Commons, signed and into law. So there's precedent set for them to do this shit without the fucking civil servants drafting anything. So it's not, none of these things are, and so if you've ever seen that fucking Heretics episode with Andrew Gold and Liz Truss, can we just remember that she was really saddened that Jimmy Savile died, and everybody knew Jimmy Savile was a fucking kiddie fiddler. They definitely knew in like Parliament and establishment and all of that stuff. Like, if she didn't know, she wouldn't have been selected. Anyway, so, you know, she's saying, oh, well, we couldn't do anything. I couldn't do anything. And I know she was only in there for like a few. And I was just like, well, you fucking can, because there's a law that says you can. So and we literally had Parliament and Boris Johnson and his mates making a fucking decision in the pub the night before without telling anyone, and then it was in through Parliament the next day. So you're telling me you couldn't do anything? We literally had them doing that three years before you were in office, saying that the deep state had you by the balls. Just fucking do it anyway. So, but that's why we need to be destroyed. It's because without having a leader, we stepped up. And the reason we stepped up is because our education system has only recently been fucked over, right? So if you think about the different level of education between people in their, you know, late 30s, early 40s, 50s, 60s in the United Kingdom versus the same age in America, it's vastly different. And don't get me wrong, like, you know, the younger age, they're all dumb and all co-opted. But America have been buying their own propaganda for decades and are being dumbed down in their education system for decades. And whereas we had Maggie, so she was so you can say maybe they had JFK, but he was 20 years before. So America is still waiting for a fucking savior, and they have one in office, and they're still bitching on social media about why hasn't Trump done XYZ. And I'm like, have you told him? If you've seen a crime, your job is to tell the police. Like, if I see crime, I tell the police. Whether they do something about it is different, right? That's like, but I don't go and bitch on social media that, oh my God, I've just seen. This is why I got loads of shit the other day. There was a woman who took a video of a couple of illegals who were following her 13-year-old daughter and 14-year-old friend, something like that, at a beach, and she put it on social media, said beware. And I was like, why didn't you fucking take that to the police? Right, take it to the people, like, because they'd approached the kids, and the kids went to their mom, and they got, mum and friend's mum, and they were like, these two guys just followed us, they propositioned us, it was really uncomfortable, we kind of like got away sharpish, but they're now following us. So who in their right mind just takes a video and sticks it on social media? Like, that's, and then just expects the police to be like, well, obviously the police should have fucking picked him up because I put it on social media. Do you know how many fucking posts there are on social media every day? Like, everybody's a narcissist. Like, everybody, and they do this and they use this, right? So there was a post the other day about somebody saying, are you worried about what you're saying on social media because you get arrested? Well, no, because I'll just plead I'm not guilty. That I've never incited any violence towards anybody. So why would I be worried? What crime have I committed by posting Keir Starmer's a fucking wanker? I mean, that's my opinion. I have a right to my own opinion. It's literally in our laws that I have a right to my own opinion, and I can freely express my opinion. If I cause somebody offense, who gives a shit? And they might have put it in the fucking law. Fine. Prove that I've offended Keir Starmer. Because you're telling me Keir Starmer's watching my tweets? Because Keir Starmer should be the only one who's offended by being called a wanker. And I think if he's a fucking politician, then you've got to expect some kind of shit. Like, if you put yourself out in public, you have to expect that some people aren't going to like you and some people are going to call you on it. And if you get offended by that, you shouldn't be in public. Like, at all. And all the female MPs who are shocked that people are like telling them they need to go fucking, like, wishing them that they were being raped. Like, welcome to the world of all the people who've been putting up with that shit for like forever, but not on social media, in real life, right? So people getting offended by something on the internet. And I'm not saying people on the internet can't then become extreme and be psychotic. And it does depend what they're saying. If you're being like harassed online and somebody's relentlessly saying you need to kill yourself, like, what happened with that celebrity. Like, that's a crime. That's incitement. But telling somebody you'll see them next Tuesday, like, just get over it. We have the best insults in the UK. We should celebrate them. Like, other countries steal our insults, right? So we shouldn't be getting rid of them. We do. People are self-censoring, right? The reality is, after the Southport riots, over 1,000 people were arrested. Around 400 went to prison. All 400 pled guilty. Around 600 didn't. The 600 pled not guilty. The only difference was whether they pled guilty or not guilty to a crime, right? If the police arrest you for a crime, then there best be a fucking victim. Because if there's not a victim and you plead not guilty, it's their job to prove guilt. It's not your job to prove innocence. Like, it's literally part of our law. This is why people need to understand the law. And I don't understand all of it. I'm not a lawyer, but that's the premise. And for criminal cases, the bar is pretty fucking high. This is why, like, murderers get off, right? Because the Crown don't have enough evidence. And you think they're going to take you to trial for a tweet? The amount of time, effort, and money? No fucking way. Not on your Nelly. And then there's only 80,000 prison places. right? So they can't arrest everybody. And if one person doesn't get arrested and go to prison for it, well, there's your precedence. So you just catalogue all of the people who are getting suspended sentences for crimes which are worse than yours. And then you go, well, I'm pleading not guilty. You take me to court. That's fine. And then they say, well, you've got a custodial sentence. I'm like, well, what about all these people who did worse than me and they didn't get a custodial sentence? Like, precedence has been set. If I go rape somebody, it's fine. But if I say Keir Starmer's a wanker, I'm going to get prison time? Yeah, no. So what if you go to prison? I mean, you get fed, right? you get housed, you get fed, you get to convert to Islam. At least you're not going to get raped on the outside. There's always a silver lining. But no, just it's fear. Like, that's why they do it, right? And that's why they pick high profile people. Because then you're psyoped into believing, oh my God, if they've gone after this person, then who am I? I'm just a nobody. You'd be like, yeah, but you're the majority. That's what you need to have in the back of your mind. Like, prove it. You sit there and go, no comment, no comment, no comment. So you behave like an annoying 15-year-old boy. If you've ever seen any police interviews with little scrotes, that's who you need to be like. No comment, no comment, no comment, no comment. Get me a lawyer. And then when the lawyer comes, you ask for an iPad with an internet connection and you use a fucking AI, right? Because them lawyers, they're shit. But just but the only reason why they are pushing devolution and pushing the referendums is to, I mean, England will be okay, right? This is what Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland don't get, is England will be okay because we've all had to fucking graft for everything we've got. If you wanted to go to university, you had to I had like 5 jobs to put myself through university because I had a full-time job, which I gave up to go to university. So I had to create a full-time wage. So I had 5 part-time jobs to put myself through university because I had to pay for everything. And when you fucking graft to pay for it all, you actually educate yourself, right? But there's no there's no excuse for ignorance nowadays with the internet and with AI. I mean, you have to be careful. I do encourage reading books or listening to, actual educational style podcasts, but listening to what they're saying and then go and doing your own research and go and do your own digging and go and understand things. And if you don't know anything about the laws, start listening to fucking law podcasts. And the best lawyers will be the people who have never, ever studied law, because your brain won't be trained in the way that they want you to. Your brain will be trained like a normal human, and you will be able to pick out, be like, oh, wait a minute, but that might work in a slightly different way, because you're not thinking it only applies to XYZ as it's been presented before. I mean, it's harder to set precedents, but it's not impossible. And we also still have common law on our statute books, right? So we have misconduct in a public office. Like, every single official, can be done for misconduct. And that is case law. Precedent has been set. The problem with the right is we're not organised and we don't have the time and the energy to do it because we're all so busy fucking working, which is why the left advances their agenda so easily. Is because they're all champagne socialists, right? Mummy, daddy has got the money and they're just taking a gap year, fully funded, right? That's the difference. That's why conservatives have it difficult. But yeah, people need to educate yourself. I can hate that phrase. But just learn stuff. Like, I know stuff about fucking quantum physics, about bloody gene editing, CRISPR, about law. Like, just like none of that was anything I'd considered ever learning anything about, but circumstance led me down a path, and I was like, hey, Joe, I'm going to learn more about this. And they do say a little knowledge is a dangerous thing, but actually it makes you dangerous. And as long as you don't kind of think you know it all, and you still rely on double checking stuff, and like hashing stuff out with the AI, if you're going to, like, you can formulate ideas and plans, and just ask it to check stuff, but make sure you understand stuff in the beginning. And or get yourself, see if you can get on eBay maybe and get yourself a Reader's Digest Know the Law book, because that was really handy. I have like other law, but I've got a fucking human rights law book, which is fucking dry as anything. But and if you can get older books, they're handy. I mean, yes, law moves on, but actually, usually it's just tweaked and tested, and you can always just go to legislation.gov, right? So we've done a lot of politics, and we did a little bit of lunacy. But so just you're not crazy. You probably just tired, probably stressed out with all the shit that's happening, and sometimes it's just the sun, sometimes it's just the moon, and sometimes it's just the way that our atoms are fizzing. And the only thing you can do on those days is do what I did earlier and tell yourself you're going to have just a little bit of ice cream and then eat the entire time, because I wanted to. So on that kind of ice cream bombshell, have yourselves an amazing rest of your Monday, and I shall see you next week. And hopefully by next week, Ukraine and Russia will have been resolved, if we now have 100% peace between Hamas and Israel. So keep praying, pray for love, pray for peace and joy and happiness. Put that atomic energy out into the world, and it will ripple outwards. Like, it's just energy. It's like it's how it works. So have an amazing rest of your day, and I shall see you next week. Bye for now. Loads of love.